we're revamping one of our favorite recipes on the channel. It's just as Moorish, it's just as crispy, it's just as spicy, chili, tasty. It's crispy chili beef, done a completely different way. I'm sure you've already guessed it. We're cooking an air-fried crispy chili beef. I'm gonna show you how to keep it so crispy you won't want to go back. Slightly different to our classic crispy chili beef recipe. The first thing I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna roast this garlic and a little bit of dry red chili up. This here is an Instant Vortex Plus, which is essentially a double drawed air fryer. You can see the two drawers here. The first drawer, I'm gonna set on an air fry function ready for my beef so it gets preheated, ready to go. I'm gonna do it on the highest possible temperature, so 205 degrees C for 4 minutes. For my garlic, I'm gonna roast this in my second drawer at 160 for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how long it takes me to cook this dish up. All I have to do with my garlic is spray it with a little bit of oil all the way around. And I quite like keeping the skin on this to kind of protect the garlic cloves themselves, but allow them to cook through. I don't mind even with the roasting function on this to just pop the garlic straight in. Now I will add these dried red chilies into that roasting drawer later on, just so that they, again, sort of bring out the sort of flavor of the dried chilies. But I don't want to go in too long with those. They're just soaking in hot water, just sort of softening out a little. Meanwhile, I have time to chop up a couple of different things. So my base of ginger, I've got a couple of Birdseye chillies I've just finely chopped up as well to go along with that ginger. And then we're very quickly on to the main event, and that's the beef itself. This beef here is rump steak, and it's kind of half frozen. It's one of those simple tricks that helps you to be able to cut nice, sort of similar sized chunks out of. So I'll take those chunks and just cut them in half. Next up, beef's all cut. Give it a good marinade. Light soy sauce, sesame oil, and a pinch of sugar. Give that a good massage through and make sure all that sauce and sesame oil is picked up by the pieces of beef and not sitting at the bottom of the bowl. Then we're gonna crack an egg into this. I've tried numerous different batters for different recipes in this air fryer, and I've come back to the traditional method of making this dry batter. And this bowl, this mixing bowl, is full of corn flour. It's actually seasoned corn flour. And there's a lot of it because what I want is for each and every piece to separate out nicely and come out dry and almost chalky or dusty white in texture. Once you've done that, I'd recommend just shaking out any sort of excess corn flour. And when I lay it onto the frying trays or the baskets in the air frying drawer, you want each piece to have a little bit of space in between each other. Now I'm using this oil spray, but you'll see that, like, even with sort of covering this tray with oil, you're using about 90–95% less oil than a classic deep frying process. And it doesn't take long for the air frying drawer to preheat at all. I've just switched that on about a minute ago and it's telling me to add the food. That's how instant it really is. Let it cook for 4 minutes, 205 degrees C. Higher than how I would if I was deep frying. I'd highly recommend as well, guys, just to give it another spray before it goes back in for its second fry or that double fry, because then it can come out super crispy. Second fry, 5 minutes. What I found, for whatever reason, the way the sort of airflow technology works, it's not exactly the same as deep frying. It's almost like a mini oven, but with more sort of concentrated heat on your ingredients. And if you want super crispy, then that extra minute or two of frying does help. I've got a bit of coriander. I'm just going to use the stalks to go into the actual sauce because there's loads of flavour and I quite like the crunch of that if you like coriander. And we'll pop that in with the ginger and chilli. Now this roasted garlic, it's about 20 minutes actually, and it seems nice and soft inside. So I'm just going to kind of swap those out, or that out, with these chilies. And that's just continuing on the roast function for about 2 to 3 minutes. And you can see that just with that tiny amount of oil and no like extra faff with having to get foil around it or anything like that, we're getting this lovely roasted sweet garlic, which I'm kind of going to make into a nice puree and add to my sauce. Now, the reason why I've roasted these chilies is that you get this really lovely sort of even roasting around each one of those chilies in the air fryer. Last thing I'm gonna do is make up the sauce. And the sauce starts with this here, which is a Chinkiang black vinegar. It's a rice vinegar that is made or fermented from a black rice husk. And it's got this lovely sort of natural flavor to it. Some honey, and then ratio of quantity, we're looking at about 3 to 2 to 1.5 ketchup. I quite like my crispy chili beef sauce to have a nice dark, almost moody color to it. So a little bit of dark soy helps that. And don't forget that lovely roasted garlic, my addition to my more sort of classic recipe. And that's going to add a real depth of savory flavor to the sauce. Just make sure that's pressed into there. It'll melt through more when it actually hits the wok. Now, funnily enough, I'm back on the wok. And that is just to finish off this sauce. And even funnier, this is probably the most amount of oil I've used for this classically deep fried dish. But I do want that little bit of oil, probably about half a tablespoon, to fry off my base spices. My ginger, my chili, coriander, and that extra dry red chili. This doesn't take long at all. Remember those dry red chilies have already been nicely roasted. And all that roasted garlic in my sauce is going to really add depth of flavor to this. High heat and then smoking hot sauce goes in. Don't miss any of that garlic if you can help it. Give that a quick stir around. And this really is a souped up crispy chili beef. Lovely air fried strips of rump steak into that bubbling hot sauce. And then flick that sauce around those crispy bits of beef. I've got some coriander leaf. Just gonna allow it to kind of weave into there and serve up. Oh, and I'm just gonna be cheeky and try that straight away. Honestly, that roasted garlic in there interacts with the chilies so well, you guys are not gonna be able to take a photo of this. Thanks to our sponsors, Instant Brands, for giving us these amazing air fryers to play around with. If there's anything you've air fried, a classic dish that you want to share with us, let us know in the comments below. We'll see you next time.